Hey everyone, this is Lisa from Life in Layouts, and today I am back with another layout using the Doodlebug Hey Pumpkin collection. I pulled out this sketch from Scrapbook Generation, which calls for 9 photos, and I'm super excited to be documenting some photos of Eli when he was much younger. I decided for this layout that I was going to use black cardstock, and black cardstock is very difficult to match. I had several pieces here that you can see, and it took me a few moments to actually find 2 pieces that were the exact same color black. I also picked out these papers to use with this layout. I knew that I wanted to use this paper here that had all of the different pieces of candy on it for the bottom base piece. And of course, you know that I had to pull out this stripe. I love this stripe. The pinks and the greens together with the orange and the yellow just fit so well, and I love that color combination. The bright colors in this collection is another reason that I wanted to use the black cardstock, because I felt like the colors would really pop against that black. I, of course, struggled with getting my 1/4-inch strips cut the same size, but I do eventually get 4 of them. And then I also brought in the citrus paper in the Doodlebug Petite print to add it right above the paper with all of the pieces of candy. These photos are actually from 2013, and look how little Eli is. He's so tiny. For this particular Halloween, he's about 2.5, and he went as a pumpkin this year. And then, of course, we had to match him up with a little pumpkin treat bucket as well. And he was just super cute trick-or-treating in Nana's neighborhood. I've used this sketch quite a few times, and I really love the fact that you're able to get full 4x6 photos. And the sketch calls for 3x3 photos, but I often switch out the 3x3 photos for 3x4 photos. And I feel like you still get a really nice balance. I also knew that I wanted to challenge myself to use the really large journaling block. So I did substitute one of the 4x6 photos on the bottom. I cut it down to a 3x4 so I could add the journaling sheet there. I did look through the cards, and I was able to find 2 3x4 cards that I knew I wanted to use. This first one says Hey Pumpkin, and it has 3 stacks of pumpkin on it. And then the other one that I wanted to use was this trick or treat card, and it has a bucket with lots of candy in it. For the other 2 squares, I knew that I wanted to use Doodlebug Petite prints because I knew I had lots of embellishments that I could add to those squares as well. So I pulled out the citrus as well as the bumblebee and cut them down to 3x4. And this is basically the base of my layout. I also decided that I wanted to mat the 2 2x2 photos that are going to be in the bottom right hand side. I had a little piece of yellow scrap, so I first started with that for mounting one of the photos, and I did pull out my layering guides to create a perfect layer around the photo. Even though this is a boy layout, there's a little bit of pink throughout the collection, and I felt like backing one of the photos in pink would really make it pop against the orange of his pumpkin costume and his pumpkin bucket. I pulled out my T-square ruler so that I could add all of the background pieces down. I started with 1 inch from the top of the layout itself. I like to use the width of the ruler because I do feel like it is an easy way to measure out the top and bottom of the layout. Of course, my photos and my cards didn't match up, so I had to pull out my T-square ruler and my X-Acto knife. Now, I do have 2 T-square rulers. The reason I bought a second one was because the one that I used a lot with my X-Acto knife trying to trim things up got a lot of nicks in it. So I kept that one to continue to use for that purpose. And then I now have a newer one where it doesn't have any nicks in it. So it does make it a little bit easier to make sure that everything is lined up. And then I started to add the bottom pattern paper. So of course, adding the green as well as that candy paper, and then the striped down at the very bottom. This costume was worn by Eli as well as his older brother Malachi, and then when my niece's first Halloween, which was last year, we put her in this costume as well when we went to the pumpkin patch. So we have gotten a lot of great use out of this Halloween costume. As I'm getting the rest of the photos and papers down, I just wanted to give you guys a little bit of an update on myself. I know that I haven't been posting a lot, and it really has to do with just a lot of personal stuff going on. I recently lost a very dear family member, and we have been dealing with all the things that come with the death of a family member. So getting into my scrapbook room and scrapbooking hasn't been an issue, but getting into my scrapbook room and doing voiceovers and editing videos, I just don't want to do it right now. I feel like I would rather just play with pretty paper and not deal with all the other stuff. So I am still getting videos up for you. I have no plan of going anywhere. And I appreciate everyone who has been very gracious with understanding the lack of videos that I've been posting. But I do have several layouts that I have completed. I was actually on a video call last night with Nicole, and I was telling her that I needed to get some journaling done. So I spent yesterday working on journaling for this layout, as well as several other layouts that I have completed recently, so that I can get photos of them, as well as doing the video edits and then the voiceover, and get those layouts up for you guys. So stay tuned. I do have lots of videos coming. Several of the videos do use this Hey Pumpkin collection because I received this collection almost immediately before the death of my family member. I haven't had a chance to play with it back in October so that I could get you guys some more relevant content. But I feel like we scrap whatever we want to scrap. You know, it's not like we are only scrapbooking Halloween stuff in the month of October. Whatever the mood fits, whatever collection I am wanting to work on, that's what I'm doing and that's what I'm working on. So I hope that you guys are okay with getting Halloween layouts in the month of December, because that's what you're gonna get. I've also been working through some other collections as well. I have a Disney layout as well as a really fun layout about McDonald's, so stay tuned for that. All right, so I got all of the papers down, and then I started to work on my stitching. I'm still using my ruler to measure out and draw the lines for my stitching. I haven't decided if I really like this method better than using the Tim Holtz ruler. I struggle with both of them. The lines on this is not straight at all, but I just went with it. Even with the ruler, I still didn't make the line straight, and my stitching is a little off, but that's what makes our layouts great, right? We have this one-of-a-kind look to it, and if we mess up, it's just a way to say that it was handmade. So I did use the ruler at the bottom on my straight edge. I put a straight edge on the green paper at the bottom. And then I also decided that I was going to add some stitching around the layout wherever I could. So I did add a straight stitch to the journaling block. I just went all around the edge of it. And then I'm also going to add a stitching around the Hey Pumpkin. I just used that black outline around the white part of it to add the holes, and then I'm going to add some black thread. So it just gives it a little bit of detail, not a whole lot, but just enough to let you know that there is some extra detail to it. This green one took me a long time to do. Those lines are really long, but I'm just using the technique of starting on the edges. So I start from one edge to the next, and then I put a hole in the center, and then from there, taking the center of that hole and the one that's to the left of it, finding the center of that. And I really don't have a rhyme or reason to it. It's more about the amount of holes that I feel like works well for that area. I then pulled out my thread, and I'm going to basically use some tone on tone for each one of the pieces. I did slow down the video here so that you can see all of my stitching. I have the green thread on the petite print. I also did some stitching at the bottom in the same green thread, and I did that both on the left and right. And then I used some black thread right around the Hey Pumpkin card, and then using that same green thread on the journaling. I forgot to show you guys, but I did also stitch on the Trick or Treat card. I added some details to some of the candy pieces as well, and so I'll make sure that I take a really good photo at the end so that you can see the details of that. Then I started to add the two 2x2 photos down at the bottom. I did add one flat to the layout, and then the other one I did use some fun foam. And then pulling out my glue press to use some liquid adhesive on the back of the fun foam. I then added the stamping block on top of it to add some weight to it. Then it's time to start embellishing the layout. I am super excited to start using some of these pieces. I pulled out this pumpkin that had a cat in it, but I felt like it was really too large for the 3x4 card. So then I found this pumpkin hot air balloon, but I didn't like it on the green, but it does make a comeback later on. I then found this embellishment that had sweet treats on it with a ton of different candy, but that was also too large for the 3x4 card. I also tried out this pumpkin, cat, and ghost trio, but again, these embellishment pieces are just so large. I then found a smaller cat inside of a pumpkin, and even though it is a little bit bigger than the 3x4, I felt like it worked well. And then I decided to go back to the pumpkin hot air balloon and add it over to the far right hand side. And those are really the two main pieces that I'm going to use on those 3x4 cards. I pulled out a word phrase because I thought I was going to add that over by the 2x2 cards. Didn't like that. I then tried a speech bubble. Definitely didn't like that. I thought that was way too large. I then pulled out the Doodlebug icons. When I purchase a collection, I like to have them all. I know that the embellishment pieces repeat themselves in the chit chats as well as the other ephemera pieces, and then with the icons and the mini icons. But I really do like to have 3 sizes. And sometimes it depends on what I'm working with. I will end up using all of the embellishment pieces in the different sizes based on the layout that I'm working on. I tried a couple of pieces over on the far right, but then I did end up adding a puffy pumpkin. And then I am adding puffy pieces to the cards as well. So I added 2 little pieces of candy, but then realized that I needed to actually adhere my pumpkin and cat down. And then I went into the shape sprinkles and pulled out a couple more pieces of candy, as well as some florals and some stars. When I first saw this collection, I was a little concerned about the amount of florals that were in this collection, but I've actually used quite a bit of them throughout the different layouts that I'm using, and I'm perfectly fine adding florals to a boy layout. I don't feel like I have to shy away from them, especially with the amount of florals and the way that Doodlebug has done the florals in this collection. I also pulled out a speech bubble, and I did use it as a speech bubble. I put it right above the cat and it says Happy Halloween. Then over on the far right hand side where the pumpkin hot air balloon is, I decided to add a couple of shape sprinkles there as well. I added a little spider, and then I saw these clouds and I was like, oh, that would be perfect for a hot air balloon. Obviously, usually those are in the sky. So I added one little cloud over to the right, and then I decided to add a small little scene with another cloud as well as a moon and a bat. And I did decide to add the cloud and the moon up on fun foam, and then I'm going to add the bat down flat. And I just love the way that that yellow moon is kind of poking out right above that black base cardstock. I also decided to add 3 little stars in pink, orange, and green. And then that is it for this video. Here is my final layout as well as some close-ups. I did decide to do my journaling offline, and it says, this year, Eli transformed into a pumpkin and waddled around Nana's neighborhood, ready to fill his pumpkin bucket to the brim. He strutted up to every door like a tiny Halloween pro, shouting trick or treat. But let's be real, he couldn't resist snagging a piece or 2 of candy along the way. And then I did have a little bit of extra room at the very bottom, so I just added the year with some stickers from Simple Stories. All right, if you enjoyed this video, if you wouldn't mind giving me a thumbs up, I would really appreciate it. If you haven't done so already and you want to see more double page layout inspiration, make sure you hit that subscribe button. Thanks everyone for watching, and I hope that you have a scrappy day.